I speak with a heavy heart and some dismay and tell the front bench that I will be voting against the bill this evening. This bill obviously comes at a dreadful time as we mourn the deaths of so many Israelis in heinous circumstances on October the 7th and the deaths of so many Palestinians subsequently, many of whom still lie under the rubble. The fact that we would, in this House, be seeking to legislate against non-violent protest in such an illiberal and draconian way seems to me tragic at this particular point in time. There are broadly three areas, as the Secretary of State knows, where I and other colleagues attempted to amend the bill and where we have concerns. The first is, as the Shadow Secretary of State pointed out, the conflation, the separate identification within the bill of Israel, its conflation with the occupied territories and the Golan Heights, we do believe contravenes our undertakings at the United Nations and indeed international law, and that of course we think will mean that the bill spends a lot of time in the courts if it eventually sees the light of day. That also at the same time is a cause of great dismay to our allies in the Arab world, who of course we need at the moment more than ever to join us in seeking peace in this dreadful conflict that's taking place in the Middle East, and that we should undermine our own status as fair dealers, if you like, in that part of the world seems to me an unforced error. The second area of serious concern is obviously the impact on free speech. Again, as the opposition frontbenchers pointed out, it seems to me incredible that we are putting elected officials and others in a position where if they just stand up in certain circumstances and say they disagree with the law, they will be committing a criminal act. It seems to me an incredibly illiberal and backward step that we would strike a blow against pluralism in that way. The bill could stand without those restrictions on free speech, and as the Secretary of State will know, we attempted to amend it to remove them as well. That was also rebuffed. But my view is that this bill will play entirely into the hands of the anti-Semites. I would imagine that those social media groups and WhatsApp groups, these rotten groups that espouse conspiracy theories about Israel and about the Jewish community, this will be manna to them. They will see this as Jonathan Friedman.
Sorry, order. No time limit. Chris Stevens.
It's with a heavy heart again that I'm participating in the debate today. Throughout December, alongside the Pope and the Archbishop of Canterbury, I sought to shed light on the suffering of Christians in Gaza City, which include my own family. And may I express sincere gratitude for members across the House who have approached me in the last few days to ask how they are. While the media attention did mitigate the immediate dangers, the plight of Gaza's residents persists, living hand to mouth, drinking unclean water, and wondering how on earth the world is letting this happen. But I am equally concerned on the impact it is having on the streets in the UK. We are seeing a rise of anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim hate, and it is unacceptable and must be called out. Absolutely.
Would my honourable friend
yes.
I'm very grateful, and I too extend my sympathies to her experiences and the experiences of her family. And as many of the cases, my own council, King Gwynedd, has called for an immediate ceasefire last month, echoing the people's concerns. They condemn both Hamas violence and Israel's disproportionate attacks on civilians. The Senedd has also called for a ceasefire. This bill will restrict members of Welsh democratic institutions from voicing their views, and I'm sure she agrees with me that this restriction on free speech is something that is a threat to our democracy across the nations of the United Kingdom.
I thank her for her intervention. I absolutely agree. I think this does not respect the directly elected bodies and those representatives. And it's the timing, it's not just that, but it's also the timing of this. We have a death toll in Gaza that now exceeds 22,000, and over 100 Israeli hostages are remaining. And I don't put those numbers side by side to compare, because every single individual lost or missing is a tragedy in its own name. And the humanitarian situation has reached new depths. A doctor, constituent of mine who is working in Gaza, said that he's seen preventable deaths due to staff shortages, and the medical system has totally collapsed. We now have injured, with nowhere to go. And tomorrow, the International Court of Justice will consider South Africa's case on Israel's alleged violations and obligations under the Genocide Convention. I am sure I need not remind this House that it was precisely local government-led interventions here in the UK, interventions that would be outlawed under this bill, that pressured the Thatcher government to add their voice to support the people of South Africa. The Foreign Secretary yesterday said that he didn't agree with the ICJ case, and I quote, "I don't think we should be bandying around terms like genocide." But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, South Africa is not bandying around terms. The ICJ is precisely the court in which those allegations should be looked at. And the principle is simple. The UK shouldn't prejudge the outcome of the legal case. It should be backing the process and the court itself full-throatedly. So I end by simply saying the Liberal Democrats will continue to advocate for an immediate bilateral ceasefire, securing hostage release, delivering aid, and working towards that precious two-state solution. Our response to this war will be judged by history, and in a fractured world where democracies need to be strengthened and the international rules-based order helped, this bill undermines local government, damages our global standing, and divides our streets. This place should be a place where we unite people, not divide, and the Liberal Democrats believe that this debate, frankly, shouldn't be happening. We stand with humanity and peace, and it is for that reason that we will be voting against the bill today.
Now, I heard the Secretary of State argue that public bodies should not deviate away from foreign policy. But as we've discovered in this debate and in all the debates that we've had, that Glasgow District Council in 1981, a Labour-led local authority, gave Nelson Mandela the freedom of the city of Glasgow. It also encouraged boycotting of South African goods and services. But the Foreign Office policy at the time was not to support sanctions of the apartheid South African regime. And so the question again is, could Glasgow District Council in 1981 have awarded Nelson Mandela the freedom of the city of Glasgow, and would Glasgow District Council have been allowed to encourage the boycott of South African goods and services? Because if this bill had been in place then I think the answer to that question is that it could not. And I'll give way to my honourable friend.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. He's doing a great job at putting on record our opposition to this foul piece of legislation. But can I ask him, does he not think there is something particularly distasteful and grotesque that this is coming at this time, and that the only legislative response by the UK government to what is happening in the Middle East is to try and bring forward proposals to stifle criticism of Israel, when it is clear and there is so much evidence that Israel is facing charges of breaching international law and breaching the Geneva Convention? Surely most right-minded people in this country who believe in decency and fairness will think this is the wrong thing at the wrong time.